In 2022, the world was at crisis, and the future of what was going to happen was uncertain. The activist Greta Thunberg travelled around the world doing speeches and educating people on how serious the climate crisis was. In one of Greta's most famous speeches, she said, "Our house is on fire. I'm here to say our house is on fire." Despite her speeches being so powerful, people found it difficult to think into the future in a negative way and envision a bad outcome for the world they live in, so they stayed in denial and carried on living in the same manner they already were. The 1980s was when climate change and global warming started to cause negative impacts on the world and was brought to the public's attention. Since then, there has been an ongoing flurry of devastating natural disasters. For example, droughts in Somalia and forest fires in Australia. However, it is a complex problem without one approach. During the pandemic in 2018 through to 2021, the devastation from the climate crisis and the impact people had on it was starting to become increasingly more obvious. Water was becoming cleaner and the air was less polluted. This was because of less air travel and use of transport. The body of water which ran through Venice got so clean during lockdown that new animals were spotted. The climate crisis was a black elephant problem. Everyone was aware of it and would be reminded of it in their everyday lives, however kept ignoring it and carrying on living in the same manner they already were. Events were hugely impacting the climate crisis. They caused incredible amounts of waste due to single-use products and an abundance of people in one place. Tents and belongings would just be abandoned at the end to just end up in landfill. But for things to change, sustainability had to come from the top. Without laws in place, sustainable living would never be achievable. So in 2019, the UK committed to achieve net zero emission target by 2050. For net zero by 2050, the way people were living really had to make a drastic change. Communities had to come together to realise how serious the problem was. They couldn't be selfish, which was the hardest obstacle to overcome. It was an enormous goal. Everything in people's lives had to change, essentially reconstructing the global energy system for all energy uses, such as power, transportation and manufacturing. The public needed to be educated on why future scenario planning was important, as even if the crisis didn't directly affect them, it would affect them and their family in the future, and without thinking into the future, nothing would or could change. However, the climate crisis was a racist problem. Environmental racism includes the use of racist practices in determining which communities receive health protective infrastructure, such as green space, and which receive health harming highways. The poorer countries and people did not stand a chance as they didn't have the money nor say to change the way they were living, and these were the countries being most affected. So, in 2023, protests began in the poorer countries to be heard and help towards the world clean energy goals and aims. They couldn't afford to use renewable energy or get electric cars, so they needed the rest of the world to hear and help them. People did begin to listen. An example of this was the band Coldplay. They refused to do a tour or show without it being more sustainable. They adjusted their shows to include bikes at the back of the standing area for fans to cycle on and help power the show. They also generated energy from people jumping on the floor. This was not only a way to make the show more sustainable, but to raise awareness on what other people could be doing. Clean air zones were introduced in big cities and high traffic areas. These were where less environmentally friendly vehicles were charged to enter the zone, which resulted in less traffic driving through. Air pollution was not only affecting the climate, but also people's health. It was said that between 2015 and 2035, the estimated cost for the NHS for air quality-related illnesses was £5.5 billion. These numbers were a driving force for change. There was then a question of, was the government doing this to prevent NHS money costs in the future, or did they care for the environment? Event managers needed to plan into the future in order to keep up with the new world which was promised by the government, a net zero future. The new upcoming event managers and producers needed to think green when planning events. Setting a location or venue is an opportunity to consider issues such as access to transport, waste management and availability of green power. Transportation is one of the main aspects of events which make it unsustainable. From the environmental perspective, the use of unsustainable modes of transport and private cars, in particular, to reach the event can generate significant pollution outcomes. So events introduce no personal travel and limit the use of public transport to events. This is a project which could result in a big drop of cars on the road and therefore less air pollution. Festivals needed to use more renewable energy, so the Green Mill Energy Tower was created. This is a renewable unit which supplies energy to festivals. The energy that the hybrid unit generates from wind and solar resources is stored in a battery energy storage system until needed. The creation of the Green Energy Mill meant that big festivals could still go ahead and not impact on the green future. However, for events to be sustainable was expensive, so laws were put into place to ensure that they weren't just going with the cheaper option. Forms had to be filled out before and after the event to evaluate the effects it had on climate change and if it met the guidelines and requirements. Without the government supporting the public with climate change, then it couldn't or wouldn't happen. So in 2030, the Green Party got voted into power. Green parties are rooted in awareness of the environmental threats against humanity and life. They are also aware of huge social injustice globally and nationally. With the Green Party being voted in, meant that the public was supportive of changing the future of the world. The Green Party worked on two main goals, which were ensuring sufficient food supply while conserving biodiversity and ensuring a modern energy access for all. Solar powers were offered to people free of charge so that they could be a main sustainable supply of energy for households across the UK. The problem with clean air across the world is that people from poorer countries are more focused on bettering their lives instead of the environment. Environmentalists have tended to put conservation first and downplay the challenge of creating wealth for billions of people who aspire for a better material life. Clean air by 2050 was achieved, but only by the rich people and the financially rich countries. The majority of people couldn't afford to just rely on clean energy or to pay for the newest, most environmentally efficient cars. So before clean energy everywhere can be achieved, environmental racial injustice needs to be stopped.